So, man, I don't want to start off with this, but I'm going to. So, when I was senior in high school, I remember telling somebody that kind of what my dreams were, and what I was doing is I was looking not the going to sleep dreams, but your dreams, your goals, kind of thing. And I remember sitting there looking through Scripture and. There in Revelation, now don't hold me to any of this theology. I mean, I was a senior in high school. Give me a break. But I remember, just kind of looking at this, and it looked like, okay, so Jesus was going to come back and have this glorious bride of his church. And so I expected that meant the church was probably doing really well, not the story of a bedraggled and struggling church. And so I saw that and thought, man, when that happens, I want to be leading that church. I want that to happen. I want to be at the head of that. I want to, as Jesus comes back, and I was excited to tell that. And I remember the look upon this person's face going, yeah, okay. But as I share that, I have a difficulty talking this morning about the idea of dreams and that kind of stuff because for a couple ones, one, I'm a little bit embarrassed about mine, but I think it's apropos. I want to kind of break that apart a little bit as we go through this sermon today. But also because there is this weird thing in our world and our culture that just says, hold on to your dreams. I didn't actually watch the Grammys, but I bet if it's like any other award show, it's going to have somebody that's going to get up there with their prize and say, see, I knew I did. And the message I have for everybody else is never let go of your dreams no matter what somebody else says. And I hope we all know that that's just poppycock. Right? I mean, at least if they still do this, the first few episodes of American Idol are proof that some people do need to give up on their dreams. That there are some times it's like, no, that's not what we are to be about. It's some of our dreams need to die. They just do. And sometimes it's because I think the dreams, even if it's like you just don't have the capability, there's a delusion there. And I've often said, folks, if I ever went on American Idol, for example, and embarrassed myself like some of those folks do, I would come back here and want to punch each and every one of you for not telling me to drop that dream. That didn't sound very Quakerly, did it? I would scold you. However, yeah, that's probably what happened. I didn't listen. But the truth is that sometimes our dreams need to die because they just lack experience and imagination. As I said, I've had many different dreams. I remember as a kid wondering, what could I do with my life? And so I imagined, what? I think I really want to be a police officer. Now, that dream was entirely because I saw them on TV and they looked really cool. Like, that's all it was. Chips was big back then. Oh, I just dated myself. That's horrible. I mean, but be that as it may, that it just lacked imagination. I didn't know. I didn't have an experience. I didn't really know what was involved in being a police officer or whatever kind of thing. So that really didn't fit. It was just more of an lack of imagination, meaning I couldn't imagine other things. I didn't know what life had to offer. So in many ways, it kind of makes sense that dream, so to speak, would die. And other dreams are just pure selfish. We could all have the dream of, getting a cabin on the lake and retiring there and going fishing every day. Okay, I wouldn't actually add fishing in my dream, but you get the point. Or, maybe your dream is more, you're going to retire early and play golf. I don't, whatever it is, but that kind of dream, that kind of impulse, that kind of push that we have, that idea is really in many ways just a selfish kind of dream and not really what I want to address this morning. Because we've been dealing with this series called 1 Year to Live. And I want us to use this year, 2023, and literally imagine this is our last year. Because if this were our last year, we would probably live it differently than if we thought we had a whole bunch of other years to go. And yet none of us are promised that. Can I point out, by the way, last week, both my wife and Penny pointed out my lack of ability to understand football because I mentioned something about having a 12th down last week. But no, my point was, this is February. If we only have one life to live, we are a 12th down from the year. Like we have 1/12 of our life would be gone. This is our 1 year to live. Yes, thank you for paying attention. I appreciate that. But if we were to have this 1 year to live, and it's partially gone, we are creeping up to 1/6 down by the end of this month. And are we going to be able to say that we lived this life without regrets? Are we going to be able to say that we lived it passionately? Where does that come from in terms of our dreams? Well, I believe that part of passionate living is to dream dreams. Specifically, to dream the dreams that God has for us. I want to point you to a particular passage in Joel. There in the Old Testament, and the prophet Joel, and he says something in chapter 2 that I think is really worth looking at. And it may be familiar to you. Let me just start by reading it. Whoa. Oh my goodness. And afterward, I will pour out my Spirit on all people. This is God speaking. I will pour out my Spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my Spirit in those days. Now, this is what God is saying. Now, he's saying this to the nation, Judah. He mentions Zion. He's talking to his people and says, I will rescue you. I will take you from the difficulty you're in. And when that happens, when I show up afterward, that's what that literally right at the beginning where it said, and afterward, I will pour out my Spirit. And the evidence of my Spirit being poured out is the fact that, the sons and daughters will prophesy, your old men will dream dreams, your young men will see visions. It may sound familiar to you because Peter quotes this in Acts 2 when he's preaching. He gives a sermon, and I think it was Acts 2, early in Acts. It might have been 3. I'm trying to remember right where they had the Pentecost. So I think that was Acts 2. So as it was talking in there, he says, all these people were speaking in languages they didn't know, but that the people they were talking to did. They were speaking in tongues in that way and being able to speak to those so that other people could hear the message of God. And they were accused of being drunk because it made no sense. And Peter quotes this saying, basically, that God's pouring out His Spirit and crazy things are happening right now. Now, there's probably a lot in this verse. We could talk about something about the young men and the young people having visions. We could talk about sons and daughters prophesying. The whole idea of male and female are to be, and God's servants are having their Spirit poured out. But I really want to deal with this idea of the old men dreaming dreams. Because there seems to be something about age, where as we get older, we learn after we've experienced it over and over. It doesn't take long, but we learn to let our dreams die. Because as we pointed out, some of them need to die. Some of them don't make a lot of sense. Some of them are selfish. But I want to argue that we need to see if we can capture again the idea of dreaming dreams, but the right kind of dreams that God has for us. And to be able to have the passion and zeal behind those dreams. I think we're in a world that is in desperate need of people that are willing to go after the dreams that God has for us. You may remember the quote I've done a number of times by Howard Thurman. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. In many ways, I think he's getting at that whole idea of what we're talking about living passionately if these were our last days, to live with passion, to come alive, to be truly alive. That's why we called this series 1 Year to Live, as opposed 1 year left to live, because I believe that if we could really live passionately, it would be a year of life that we could be fully alive. And the world is in desperate need of it. Our families are in desperate need of it. Our communities are in need of it. And frankly, you and I, just to live deeply, passionately, we need it. I had found out about a week ago, this concept was not new to Howard Thurman. He quoted some like 4th century guy. I couldn't find that, so I need to look at it, but it's not new to him. This idea is scriptural. It's been around for a while, to talk about how really a passionate living, as long as we really delve into what God has for us, it makes a difference. So I want to talk a little bit about that and how we might differentiate the dreams that we have, that we might spark them up again, and differentiate them a little bit between that and our own selfish lack of imagination dreams. And the first criteria, I would argue, and the second blank there in your outline, is it's going to start with faith. God's dreams are going to start with faith. Let's look at Ephesians. Now to him who is able to do more abundantly beyond all that we ask or think, according to the power that works within us, to him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus to all generations forever and ever. Amen. I think what's really going on that in this verse is just this idea that God, to him, who is able to do more beyond all that we can ask. Other versions say, ask or imagine. That God is able to do way beyond anything we can ask, imagine, anything we can dream. God is able to do more than that. And in many ways, if we want to tie in to God's dreams, it's going to have to be something that we really offer up, that is something from God himself. And that requires faith. What I mean by that is that I think a lot of us, when we think about our dreams and we have goals, we have agenda, we have desires, whether we're somebody who's really driven by those dreams and we say, hey, yes, I see that and I have this ambition, I have this goal and I'm going to go for it. I'm a real goal setter and attainer and I'm going for it as quickly as I can. Others who are just like, yeah, I can't ever live up to that. Forget it. I'm never going to do that. One of the things those folks have in common is they believe the dreams and the goals are up to them. That they need to accomplish that it's something that they are going to work, that it's all about their capabilities, their power, and what they can accomplish. And the truth is, we can accomplish a lot. I am amazed at what some people can accomplish as they just set their mind to it, and they're going to accomplish, and they can create big things and do all kinds of stuff. We have that all throughout our culture. We prize it so much that I wonder how much the rest of us may think, man, I don't really amount to much because I can't seem to get there. I'm not as ambitious and as powerful as they are. But the real question, I think, no matter what level we are, is this question of faith. In our dreams, do we really want to be limited by what we can do and our capabilities, or by a God who is able to do more than we could ever ask or even think of? Do we want a power of God living in us and through us to live out the dreams of God's dreams for us, or just our own? Well, sounds like an easy decision, right? I'd rather have God's power than my own. The problem is God's power comes with God's agenda. And God often has a very different agenda than I do. I have an agenda that involves, well, really my comfort and my ease more than God seems to care about. I would like things to be simpler. I would like things to be easier. I would like things to be more comfortable. I would like things the way I like it. I want my air conditioned exactly the way I want it. I want my life and home built exactly the way that I want it. And man, if I can get my family and my neighbors and those politicians to live the way I want them to live, then life would be good. God seems to have a different agenda. That he seems way more interested in something else. We'll get into that more, but let's get to the next point. Not only will dreaming God's dreams and living out those dreams passionately involve starting with faith, it'll also be consistent with your heart. Now, I feel like this can be really taken out of context. So let me explain. When Scripture uses the word heart, certainly in the Old Testament where I'm going to pull this from, the word in Hebrew, and I don't know Hebrew well, but I was able to look it up on Google. But this idea that the Hebrew word here for heart that we're going to get is really less about, it's not about physically our organ. It's about this inner life. It's about the inner person, the will, so to speak. It's that within you that causes you to will and act according to your purpose. That whatever that is, that heart, the inside of you. And Psalm 20, in the first part, says, "May He give you the desires of your heart and make all your plans succeed." That this is a prayer that God would do that. And what's this prayer? That God may give you all that you desire. And all the desire of your heart. He's saying, may He give you everything that you really will for, that you choose, that you really want on the inner life. So what do we do with that? When I shared my dream with you initially, talking about, being leading the church as Jesus returns and all that kind of stuff, and that we actually see multiple parts of my heart there. At one part, and the part that my friend was rolling their eyes at was literally the part that says, "Bill, that's about your glory. That was about your self-aggrandizement. That was about you." And that was definitely a part of my heart. It was about me, what I want. I want the applaud. I want to be at the front. I want to be on the stage and have everybody clap for me. That's what I long for. That was definitely a part of my heart. But there was other parts of my heart as well. The part that was associated, like, I want to be serving in God's kingdom. I want to be part of what God is doing in the church. I want to be part of the history of God's kingdom. That all those things were true. And all that was part of my heart. In many ways, I'm trying to make 2 points simultaneously and I can't. So let me just say it this way and then I'll correct it in a second. And that is, I believe that God has put something in our hearts that is consistent with His kingdom and that He longs for, and that we can find those nuggets of what God longs for us. We see in how He's built us and the way that our hearts are already built in the image of God from the beginning, that God has put that. And who knows what that'll look like. For me, it was taking those nuggets and realizing, yes, for me to live the dream that God has, I have to be involved in the church and I have to be serving to the best that I can. I want to be involved in the history of the kingdom of God. Like, I knew that was so definitely a part of my heart. And I need to find those nuggets, and I believe God has put those nuggets in each and every one of us. That part of your dreams, if we can get to the heart of it, no pun intended, that we're going to see a bit of what God has always been calling you to. And who knows how that might manifest, that there may be a part of you that, that's drawn to some work, to some service. You're saying, hey, I could find fulfillment. I would love to be able to do this and to help others this way. Maybe it's about a concern and care for a people group, some group of folks, maybe a nation, maybe something, maybe the homeless, and you have a real heart for making a difference there. Who knows, like that finding that nugget. But realizing, once again, that it isn't about you. Later, matter of fact, in Psalm 20, verse 7, I think I have like 4 written on the outline, but it's Psalm 20, verse 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. That means 3 verses later, it's talking about having these desires, the desires of your heart, and having that happen. But really, it's not about making it happen yourself. It's not about all the power, horses and chariots and things that you can grab, but it really is all in the name of the Lord, which is how we get to our third point. That not only will this be consistent with your heart, it will be consistent with God's plan. This is not of you. That God's dreams will in many ways be about, well, what God wants, right? Taking a different way at this, but Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. I think this is so hard for me to talk about because our world sees this so radically differently. Our world tries to tell us, our society, our culture, tells us that, just follow your dream, follow your heart, be authentically you. But how do you even figure out who you are? And what they'll say is, well, you just determine it. You just kind of look at all your desires, and to be authentic, you just let that all out into the world and let them deal with it. Well, what if I'm a jerk? Now, you're not supposed to laugh at that. But what if I'm a jerk? Am I just supposed to let that out and be authentically a jerk? Am I just supposed to, well, I'm a jerk, that's who I am, and let that all out? That's who I want to be. I want to be mean to people, and I want to kick kittens and whatever. No, what we would say, no, not that. That's not really you. And what we really mean is we want you to pick and choose among the things in your heart that you really manifest. And our culture and our world is going to tell you all kinds of things that you should base your identity, that you should base your authentic self, that you should base your heart on. It's true, and you could go on certain websites, you can listen to different people, and they're going to tell you all kinds of things that it could be. It could be based on sexual identity. It could be based on inward feelings. It could be based on whatever, that's who you are. That's your identity. That's your heart. Scripture indicates something else, that we need to guard our heart. And what would be guarding that mean? It really means being super aware of where our heart is and allowing God to transform that, because what we really need is transformed hearts. I mean, do you realize this is really the central idea of the gospel? That we are broken and separated from God, and we have this mix, that though we are built in the image of God, we are broken, and we seek our own desires and our own stuff. And what we need is a God that will rescue us from this part, the broken and the misguided and the unordered, and have Him help us to live into what we were always built to be. That Jesus came not only to teach us and give us the vision of what we were always supposed to be, but to actually set us right with God. So that in Him, that it's not based on chariots and horses, it's not based on our own power and capabilities, it's not based on our own righteousness, it's based on our ability, our willingness to just say, Jesus, save me. Transform my heart. And so I believe at the root that as we move forward is that the dreams that God has put in you, that what we need to do is we need to take that. We need to sift it and guard our hearts and say, Lord, what of this is in your plan? What of this is of you? And there are multiple tests that you can do. There are multiple things and ways to test it. That's one of the advantages of just knowing Scripture. Comparing it maybe to the fruits of the Spirit. Is it filled with love and joy and peace and patience and kindness, goodness, thoughtfulness, gentleness, self-control? Is my dream consist of that? When I dream, when I have nothing to think about, like no one's requiring my thought, when I just daydream, where does that go? And are those dreams about my own selfishness, my own comfort, or is it about the things of God? And to say, I want to steer into, Lord, what it is in there that you have for me. So part of this is to say, for those of you who are dreaming and dreaming big, sift that, guard your heart, and see of that which of that is of God. But I believe wholeheartedly, there's that again. I believe that in many ways, one of our biggest struggles is the world has taught us to stop dreaming, to give up. And like I said, sometimes it's true, and that's what makes it even harder. So what I'd really like to leave you with this morning is I want you to begin with however much time we have left in life, whether it's 1 year, whether it's a decade, whether it's 80 years, whatever we have, let us work and pay attention to the dream that God has for you that he has put in your heart. And so I just want to ask 3 questions to try to get at it. Now, as I ask these questions, I mean, the first one's, okay, pretty basic. What are you dreaming about? Seriously, just think about it. I'm not asking you. Well, I mean, I'm asking you, but you don't have to respond to me. But maybe just what are you dreaming about? When you're walking along and you don't have anything you have to think about, where do your daydreams go? And if they're and in many ways, that's telling you sometimes the condition of your heart. If it's all selfish things that you daydream about, then really saying, Lord, I need you to transform these dreams and begin to guard your heart and allow that to sift through and say, what of that is really of you? Be really careful here, because it's super easy to just put spiritual language around our own selfish desires. We can do that all the time. Oh, God wants me to have a mansion so I can use it to invite people over to witness to them. You know, I could do that, right? I can easily convince myself. So this is hard work. The second question, though, and I'm asking this not because you should definitely do this, but maybe this next question will help you get at some of this. What would you attempt with God if you knew you couldn't fail? If you knew you wouldn't fail, if you knew, I don't know, like life was a video game and you could keep going as many times and just put another quarter in and keep going over and over to get that boss fight. Actually, nobody puts quarters into machines anymore. Where'd that come from? But if you knew, if you could keep going, what would you attempt? What would you attempt? That might spark, not that you necessarily have to do that, but maybe that sparks and you hear a little bit about, man, I would love this. Or another question, what would you be doing with your life if you had unlimited resources? If you had unlimited resources, so you didn't have to worry about not having enough of what you needed, what would you be doing? And I'm hoping that spurs in you some kind of idea of what God's dreams may be for your heart. I do want to give a couple of warnings. One, just understand that as you think about your dreams, just 2 things that I was talking to people this week. One, it isn't always going to necessarily be direct. Meaning, you might have a dream to really influence the world for Christ, and the person I think of, I don't know this person's name. I don't even know if they exist, but I'm sure they've got to. And that's Billy Graham's Sunday school teacher. Right? I don't know what Billy Graham Sunday, I don't know anything about him. I should probably look it up. He may never even had one. I don't know. I assume he went to Sunday school. But, as maybe this person had a dream of, I want to reach thousands for Christ. And in many ways, that person did, as they begin to have an influence on Billy Graham, who did. So it may not be direct. It may be whatever dream God has put on your heart. Won't necessarily, I'm going to make this happen. Because remember, it's not about your power. It's not about you. It may be that you are just helping someone else, helping the kingdom, that you are part of a piece of this greater thing that happens, but it's still part of your heart. So be aware that could be. Also, it also doesn't mean it's got to be your job. I don't know where that idea came, that somehow our real meaning, our real purpose, our real dreams are going to be found in our job. And if I can find the job I've always dreamed of and make sure that it's not necessarily like that. It could be. But it may be that your job is there to provide the basics of what you need for other things, but your dream is going to be found, and probably more likely is going to be found in your ministry, in your service, in what you're doing outside of your job. But in any case, let's dream. We're going to move to open worship now. And we're going to give you a time and certainly to reflect on what God has put on your heart. But I'm hoping part of that reflection will be just to dream a little bit. Matter of fact, I'm going to pray for that right now, and then we'll go into it. Gracious Lord, I just thank you that you have built us with meaning and purpose. None of us are here by accident, but that you have called us to something great and beyond and have put that, inscribed it upon our very hearts. But Lord, I've messed it up. I've let my own selfish desires and demand that I do it cloud not only the vision of what you have for me, but even the very thing I'm going to go for. So I'm a mixed up, jumbled mess because my heart is a mixed up, jumbled mess. And I need a Savior. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. I need you. Forgive me. Forgive me for the ways that I've pursued my own agenda as opposed to yours, as I've trusted in my own power as opposed to yours, and instead, Lord, lead me. Forgive my sins. Lead me forward into the dreams you have for me in Jesus' name. Amen? Let's have a couple minutes of open worship, and I'll close this.